Thanks for joining us on another busy night of all things people, power, and politics. This is The Pulse. I'm Charlie Langton. The government shutdown a step closer to ending, but the deal has a lot of Democrats still saying not good enough. And as the bill heads to the House, we're getting that reaction right here on The Pulse. Democratic Leslie Love will be with us, and Republican Jamie Rowe with their reactions to the deal and the divide among the Democrats. And no matter who you are, one thing we all need in life at one point or another, doctors. But there's a problem. There aren't enough doctors in Michigan. And universities say that people aren't going into the profession. We're talking with the Associate Dean of Oakland University School of Medicine about what's driving this shortage, and better yet, what needs to be done. But we want to start by recognizing everyone who has served our country. This Veterans Day, like all Veterans Days, are a moment for us to pause, reflect, and thank people who signed up to defend our freedom. And today, the Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, and Vice President Vance laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier before the president spoke at Arlington National Cemetery, praising the troops.
This morning on these hallowed grounds where generations of American heroes rest in eternal glory, we gather to fulfill the sacred duty of every free man and woman. On Veterans Day, we honor those who have worn the uniform, who have borne the battle, who have stood to watch and whose ranks have formed the mighty wall of flesh and blood, bravery and devotion that has defended our freedom for 250 years.
And former President Obama also greeting veterans after their special flight took off from Madison, Wisconsin and landed in D.C. He shook hands with each of them before boarding the plane and giving a special message to all of them. From all of us here at Fox 2, we'd like to recognize all of our veterans and say thank you for your service. All right, we do want to get up to speed now with the latest involving the government shutdown. And because while there's light at the end of the tunnel for federal workers going without pay, you'll still see some of the effects. For example, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that he doesn't know when the FAA will return to normal flight capacity. And he has a message for air traffic controllers who've been working without pay for more than a month as travelers deal with this anxiety.
I'm concerned that we're not going to have on day one controllers come back into the towers right away. I'm asking them to do that. President Trump has asked them to do that.
I have been checking this flight for many days now, trying to see, is it going to be delayed? Is it going to be canceled? What's my backup plan?
Saturday was a disaster. I tried to get from Charleston to here on Saturday, and everything was canceled.
And in case you missed it, late last night, the Senate passed a new spending bill, sending it to the House. The longest government shutdown is still going on. And as Republicans say, it's a relief that Democrats say the health care battle is still on.
Know that the strain of these weeks has been immense, that you all have families, rent to meet, bills to pay, car and mortgage payments. And I'm grateful for all you have done to keep the Senate running. And for all that you do every day, shutdown or no shutdown, to serve the Senate and to serve our country.
Republicans now own this health care crisis. They knew it was coming. We wanted to fix it. Republicans said no, and now it's on them.
Politics. House Speaker Mike Johnson urged lawmakers to come back to D.C. immediately. They've been on recess now for weeks. An official notice says that the earliest the House will vote is tomorrow afternoon, so stay tuned. All right, that's just scratching the surface. So let's pick up the pace and run through some of the other big stories that we're on top of tonight. We'll start with this one. President Trump asking the Supreme Court to throw out a jury verdict in a civil lawsuit against him by writer E. Jean Carroll. That verdict found him liable for sexual abuse stemming from allegations dating back to the 1990s. Trump's lawyers argued that the allegations were propped up by evidentiary rulings they call indefensible, and that they added those rulings allowed Carroll's lawyers to present, quote, highly inflammatory evidence against him. The president denies Carroll's allegations. And a new directive from the Trump administration could make it harder for foreigners to visit or live in the United States if they have certain medical conditions or financial problems. Those conditions includes things like diabetes or obesity. The State Department tells the embassy officials to vet visa applicants to make sure that they won't need to rely on government benefits anytime after they enter the U.S. Immigrants entering the U.S. already have to go through a medical exam by a doctor approved by the U.S. Embassy. And President Trump wants to send you $2,000. How about that? Okay, I got your attention now, right? He's proposing sending checks to people because of the revenue raised by his tariffs. And those checks would go to everyone except high-income people. Now, don't start counting the money yet. It would likely require legislation from Congress, and some economists say the math doesn't add up. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he also said earlier this week that he hadn't even talked to the president about this plan and said that it could also come in the form of tax cuts. All right, let's be honest. We know how hard it is to buy a home. Well, it's just plain expensive, right? But President Trump is pushing a new plan that he says will make it easier. A 50-year mortgage. Now, here's the thing, though. The average first-time buyer is 33 years old, meaning buyers will be in their 80s before that mortgage is paid off. And the administration pushing back on the claim that these rates are too long. But realtors say it's not a realistic approach. Adding the savings would be minimal.
Wouldn't that be the same as essentially renting?
No, it wouldn't, because you would basically build equity.
I don't think there are a ton of people who, for them, the difference between buying a home and not buying a home is the $200 a month that they would save.
Analysts by the Associated Press shows that a borrower would pay roughly $389,000 more in interest over the life of a 50-year mortgage compared to a 30-year mortgage. All right, we're turning back to the health care crisis after the break, but not in the way you think. Experts say there aren't enough doctors in Michigan. We're going to dive into the why next. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. All right, here to talk about the shortage of doctors in our state and what to do about it, Dr. Abhi Krishnan. He's an associate dean at the Oakland University School of Medicine. Dr. Abhi, it's good to have you here. Thank you for being here. Is there a shortage of doctors in Michigan?
Yes, I would say so. I think here in the state of Michigan, and even nationally, and mostly, like I would say, in primary care specialties. So specialties like family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, even OBGYN.
Okay, the obvious question is why?
So I think that's a really good question. And I think that it's a multifactorial concern, I would say, answer. And in its complexity, I think in the short term, I would say that it has a lot to do with available residency positions. And so the residency positions that we currently have in the state of Michigan and also around the country.
So let me break this down, because I don't want to interrupt you, but let me just say the residency. You are the associate dean of the medical school at Oakland University. If I want to be a doctor, I've got to get accepted into the program, okay? So I have to go to 4 years of college, right? And then I apply to your medical school. I get in, I have to do 4 years of your medical school, right?
That's right.
That doesn't make me a doctor, though.
No, it doesn't.
Then I have to do a residency. That's the next step. And how long is the residency?
It could be anywhere from like 3 to maybe even 7 years.
Okay,
so it does make you a practicing physician. Right.
Yeah. And I can't really I can make a little bit of money in the residency, but not that much.
Right.
We'll get into the costs in just a moment.
Sure.
But the bottom line here is, from what I think you're just saying, is that although it's still hard to get in medical school, but that's not the problem. The problem is getting a residency. Why is getting a residency a problem?
Well, I think that getting the residencies, especially in the primary care specialties, are because of the fact that there's not enough residency positions available.
Why
and I think
not?
that's part of the reason.
Why not?
So a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's all Medicaid backed. And so the federal government is really responsible for being able to give them the financial backing that they need for these residency positions.
Why isn't the federal government, that, like they've done for many, many years, backed residency programs?
It's just been historic practice that they've instituted. The residency caps haven't really changed very much since the 1990s. So we sort of have a dearth of physicians, if you will, a shortage of medical providers, but then you also have a shortage of residency positions to really allow for.
Are residencies, because that's really school, right? It's just another school. You don't have it at Oakland University, but do you have residency programs at Oakland University?
Affiliated with our clinical partner.
Well, maybe they're too expensive. They're too expensive. Is that possible?
Residency positions, I think that there is, like, they do need an income, and I think that the federal government is really, looking at being able to provide that for like our residents.
So but you don't get the money from the federal government. Your four-year medical school, I mean, what are you going to do with a four-year medical degree when you can't practice?
That's true.
Let me ask you this. Are you getting the best and the brightest to go into medical school these days, do you think?
I think so. I think that it's academically competitive, but I do think that we're able to get like the best and the brightest to really come through.
What does a residency make after? Well, let me ask you this: how much does it cost for medical school?
Medical school on average, it depends, but I would say like cost of attendance can range anywhere from $40,000 all the way up to even $80,000.
So you're talking about $200,000 for 4 years, minimal, and you've got an undergraduate degree that you've paid for some college there. So you're talking about maybe $500,000 when you get to your residency. How much do residents make? About
anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000, right?
So now you're 8 years in education. You owe $500,000, and you're going to make $60,000, and how long the rest? You said 3 to 8 years. What do you say to them? That it's not financially feasible. If I was smart, I could go into be an engineer. I can go into IT. I can do a lot of other things and make a lot more money.
Absolutely, but I think that that's really where it's our job, like as admissions deans, to find the right type of people for this type of career path, right? So there's a lot of challenges facing healthcare today, but it's about finding like those types of physicians who are adaptable, resilient, and able to really care for the communities that we need to care for.
Are we in a dangerous situation where we're not getting enough doctors? I mean, what can we do?
I think it's about, I think it's a political conversation, I think, that needs to kind of be had. But from a medical school perspective, though, we try our best to make sure that we can at least, for the available residency positions that we have, to identify like the best graduates that we can from OUWB.
All right. Dr. Abby Kristen, I think this is a very interesting conversation, one that I think we're going to have to continue at some point in time. We need doctors. We need doctors. If they're listening, the politicians, because I think it's a funding issue, it sounds to me. You're getting your applicants, that's not a problem.
No.
Good people are applying to Oakland University, and you're getting good students.
Yes, we are.
It's just the next step. And that seems to be the problem. I'll give you the last 20 seconds or so. Wrap it up. What would you say, even if it's a political solution, to getting these good students from Oakland University into the residencies?
I would say that I think it's about time that we try as hard as we can to create more opportunities here in the state of Michigan. I think that the Magnificent Seven, I call them, our medical schools here in Michigan are really trying as hard as we can to make sure that we can build that healthcare workforce, and we're ready to meet the demands of the healthcare shortages that we're talking about.
We will follow the story. Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right, back to the shutdown after the break. Democrat Leslie Love, Republican Jamie Rowe, debate. Is this a good deal, a bad deal? What about this Democratic divide? The Pulse, back in 3 minutes. It's people, power, and politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show, The Pulse. Here to debate the deal to end the shutdown and a whole lot more, former Democratic State Representative Leslie Love and Republican commentator Jamie Rowe. All right, Jamie, let me start with you. Your party, the Republicans, hold the Senate, the House, the presidency, and yet you couldn't get this deal done. It took 40 days, people starving, all kinds of things. Why can't you guys put this thing to rest?
I would just say this. The main reason why is because of the rules of the Senate, which require 60 votes, and we only have 53 Republican members of the Senate, which means we needed at least 7 common sense Democrats to come over and help us keep the government open with a clean CR, which is exactly what they said they've always wanted. And they would not come along. So this dictator that they claim we have did not do anything dictatorial here. He allowed the Democrats to throw their tantrum. They shut the government down for 47 days. They denied people food stamps. They denied people paychecks for their work.
To characterize the Democrats of having a tantrum when what they're actually doing is trying to protect the American people by saving the American Affordable Care Act.
Hold on, he's right about that, though. The rules of the Senate, you have 8 Democrats that some people would say are obstructionists because they couldn't get to the merits. They filibustered. What do you say to that?
Absolutely not. It's not like the senators are the negotiators or the congressmen, the Republican congressmen are the negotiators. It's Trump. They work for Donald Trump. And he is the one that has to come to the table and meet with Democrats to get this deal done. So they only get one bite at this apple, Charlie. And they did the right thing.
Jamie, Trump knows the rules, too. He knows that they could be a filibuster, so he's got to concede. Why didn't he concede? Health care. Why would he concede on that?
Because you don't concede to hostage takers, Charlie. You do not concede to hostage takers. They were demanding that Republicans give illegal aliens health care, fix their Obamacare mess, because their subsidy that they put in place and they put the expiration date on was coming due, and you do not give hostage takers what they want, or all they do is take more hostages.
Or, for example, in America, I mean, not America, just Michigan, where you have 500,000 people who are on the ACA.
Right.
And so if you ever have a heart attack, if your child breaks their arm, if you need gynecological exams, and you actually had to pay all of that out of your pocket, there'll be a lot of people not getting the medical care that they need. Democrats did the right thing by holding off, and Trump needed to come to the table and negotiate.
Okay, let's just hold this for a moment. Your party, your leader, Schumer, he's mad at those 8 Democrats. Your party seems to be in shambles over this, despite all these great arguments you're making. It's politics, though, Leslie.
It's not a shamble. I think the Republicans are sick of pink Republicans as much as Democrats are tired of light blue Democrats. And so those people who cross the line are what we would call light blue Democrats. Democrats needed to stay together and hold the line on this.
Yes, the Democrats are mad at the 8 Democrats who came over the line to give people their SNAP benefits, to give our law enforcement their paychecks, to give our military their paychecks, and to keep this country operating. That's who they're mad at right now.
Jamie,
and they want to try and blame us for the shutdown, Charlie. Quite frankly, the ones who are mad when the government reopens are the ones who shut the government down.
Is there a coincidence here that the Republicans were holding out while people were starving? They couldn't get their SNAP benefits, but once they couldn't fly, once Republicans couldn't go on the plane, this thing was almost settled.
No, Republicans voted 15 times in the Senate to open the government, and it was the Democrats finally who felt the pressure. The 8 common sense Democrats, like Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania, who's been a voice of reason throughout this entire process,
What's a vote without a commitment?
Came over.
What's a vote without? They cannot make a deal. They can say, hey, Democrats, we're going to work with you. We'll kick this can down the road till December. And then they'll go to their daddy Trump, and he'll say, I'm not signing anything. I do not agree with any of Obamacare. No. So you don't have one time to get this right.
They said from the start that they are willing to talk about the Obamacare subsidies, that the Democrats set the expiration date for.
They're not the deciders.
They said that they would do it. And President Trump said
that's why Republicans are in trouble. When it's time for this midterm elections, we'll see. Because those 8 Democrats did cross the line. Let's see what happens next.
Leslie, let's change topics just a little bit here. President Trump seems to be talking very generous. He wants to give $2,000 to taxpayers, and he's going to take the money from the earnings that he made on the tariffs. Sounds like stimulus checks. You agree with that, right?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
No. First of all, I think we have trillions of dollars in debt that we need to pay down. The American people are not going to buy this again. You know, give us a $2,000 when still we had to deal with the price of eggs. We still have to deal with what's going to happen with the cost of health care after December 31st.
Jamie, sounds like a Democratic policy that Trump's adopting here with the $2,000 checks.
Trump said from the get-go that there may be a return to the taxpayers of their money if it is generated through his policies, and it is being generated through his policies. We've run surplus in a couple of months this year.
$200 billion more this year, about $100 billion more this year in money generated from those tariffs.
Not to mention the economic growth that we're getting because of the one big beautiful bill.
It's all fugazi. Listen, we have a debt that we need to pay down. I think there are business owners who had to pay those tariffs and then pass those costs on to consumers. So I think there are layers to this. Handing out $2,000 checks to placate people, I think we're smarter than that, and we know the game that's being played here. And it's not cute, it's not funny, and it's not the time for it.
50-year mortgages. 50-year mortgages. Now Trump's got a plan for a 50-year mortgage that arguably, Jamie, would add about hundreds of thousands of dollars to the average mortgage in interest. Is that a way to get first-time homeowners into the game?
Part of the problem is here that now I saw the other day that the average age of a first-time home buyer is 40 years old now. I bought my first home when I was in my 20s. Okay, there's got to be something that we can do. It's an idea put on the table for people to take a look at. And if it's an option that people want to exercise, I suppose that if that's a way that they can afford to buy a house, I suppose it could be a good idea.
Are you okay with a 50-year mortgage?
I think, it's beyond, you can get a house, but it's keeping the house. And so in a time where job resources are lacking, people still, you might be working today and then you're unemployed the next day and you still don't have health care insurance. So now your auto insurance is still high. Yeah. So we're all, this is not right from the top down. So housing.
Then let's have a debate. The answer to health care isn't a subsidy. The answer to health care is lowering the cost of care and new ideas like association health plans and other great ideas.
The making of a plan?
Is it a human right, health care?
I think people have a right to maintain their health. I don't think it's the government's responsibility to make certain that everybody has health care, but the government needs to make it easier.
Until there's a pandemic. Until there's a pandemic, and then it hits all of us, whether you have health care or not.
Let me ask you
this. Then what?
Trump wants to, speaking of health, Trump wants to deny foreigners coming into the United States who are fat. He said if you're obese, you cannot come into the United States because you'd be a drain on government benefits. Is that a good idea, Leslie?
What did you just say?
We just said that. We talked about that. There's a plan right now that the U.S. should deny a visa to foreigners who are obese or have other medical conditions. But we're just focused on the fat one for right now.
Oh,
is that good?
That is so ridiculous.
Jamie, you okay with that?
Well, I think under the last administration you saw 20 million people let into the country, and God knows who they were, and just waved on by and have wreaked all kinds of havoc across this country.
Isn't that pretty discriminatory, though?
That is
if someone is going to be a burden, if someone's going to be a burden on this country, they should not be allowed in.
Wow.
No.
Last word, Leslie. 10 seconds. Go ahead.
Vote Democrat next year. Where's the camera? Vote for Democrats next year, all across the board.
Vote Republican.
Jamie.
Have good government.
That's the Pulse for tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Charlie Langton. Have a great night.